Most people don't know that the paddle wasn't originally invented for use on school children. This was actually a tool for beating slaves. The idea was to have something that would inflict terrible pain without causing the kind of serious permanent tissue damage of a whip that could lower slaves' market value.
Yeah. Did you grow up in a paddling state?
No, I grew up in California, and I never knew anything about paddling. In fact, my own daughter here, Angie, told me after we moved here, she said, "Mom, I always thought paddles were for boating."
Yeah.
She said, "But here they use them to hit kids in schools."
Right.
She said,
So, growing up in California and going to a school where you knew they couldn't hit you, and seeing your daughter go to a school where that's sanctioned, what would you say is the difference in her whole world?
that she's not
yours?
receiving equal human, constitutional, or civil rights. It's against the law in schools in over half of our nation.
Right.
And why doesn't my daughter get to enjoy those civil liberties that are taken for granted by all these kids in those 30 states and those schools?
Right.
She should have the same rights.
Hi, what's your name, young lady?
My name's Angie.
Angie. All right, I just finished talking to your mom and learned a lot about what's going on. Now tell us some things that you like about that school, first of all. Is there anything you like about it?
I like that in the hallways you get to talk to your friends. That's about it though.
What is it like in the classroom where teachers are allowed to beat children? Tell me what that feels like to you.
It's an awkward environment and it's not a good feeling. I mean, you think that they can bring it out at any moment and just like smack you with it for no reason like they always do. And it's like a threat without even saying anything.
Right. It's just a threat that's just hanging over your head, in other words?
Yeah.
Do you have any friends who've ever been paddled in school?
Yes, I do.
I'm frustrated that I'm unable to protect my children and to provide them
from
with
the
a
listening.
safe learning environment where they
Right.
feel safe. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So how often would you say that occurs at her school?
I don't know. I don't know how often it occurs.
I mean, is
think
it
it's
as
done
frequently more than
routinely.
one a day?
Oh yeah, sometimes kids get 3 or 4 kids will be paddled at one time. I know the time my son was threatened with a paddling, they knew that 3 other kids were paddled, and I didn't know at that time that they were doing it in the hallway, just outside class. And the teachers have the paddles displayed; they're hanging on the wall in the classroom, and they take them out of their desk drawers, whatever. They have these big, thick paddles with holes drilled in them. Names, they have names on them, and they also, like named Old Joe or whatever, or Big Joe. You're going to have to meet Big Joe, and they make the kids bend over and grab your ankles. And they grab the kid's belt loop, and they proceed to hit them with this big, thick piece of wood.
You ever see any of your friends cry if they were paddled?
No.
No?
They try to suck it up and act all tough.
Who is it that beats the boys? Is it a male, a female, both?
It's both. I mean, I don't know if my principal paddles them, but I know he can and he has a paddle and all. But it's usually the teachers, which the teachers are mostly female.
Wow, so female spanking boys. Wow, that must what do you think that could be like for a boy? Being beaten by a woman
I think in
standing
ways
over him.
that they'd feel like sexually assaulted. I remember one comment about something like 2 people were talking, someone was talking about how one of the teachers hit, and they're like, "Oh, she hits hard."
Oh, I see. And what grade are you in again?
I'm in the 8th grade.
8th grade. So does your school is that the highest grade in your school is 8th? Or
Yes.
well into 21st century America. And you're talking about a practice that was brought about during slavery. Do you know what year slavery started in this country?
I'm so ashamed of it ever having taken place.
Yeah. Well,
That man's incapacity to be inhuman to other men is, well, it's an age-old problem, and you would think we've come a long way, but we've got a ways to go.
right. I mean, you're talking about drilling holes. First of all, slavery started in this country in the 1600s. Just so you know, 1619 technically was when it started here. 1619. And you're talking about a practice of drilling holes that goes as far back as, the Willie Lynch slave days. Why don't you tell our listeners what today's date is?
Today is December the 3rd, 2010.
These leaders have seen the pictures. They've seen the ACLU report, the GAO
Right.
report.
We've been
and,
working on it for years, a couple, say 3-4 years.
Yeah.
There are people like us that have witnessed firsthand abuses of children in schools. They've seen several adults restraining a child to hit them. And with a wooden paddle. Who would ever think taking a wooden paddle and hitting a person is a great idea? I don't think
Right,
it is.
right.
It doesn't teach anything of value.
Mind telling our listeners about the ACLU report and maybe even a little about the GAO report?
Well, the ACLU report was released in August of 2008. And I remember when I heard the news on CNN, I thought, wow, this is it, you know. They're
Yeah,
going to move.
absolutely.
They're going to do the right thing by our children.
Right.
And here it is, we're in 2010, and,
Right, right.
and the ACLU and Human Rights Watch put the report together using the United States federal government Department of Education statistics as reported by these school districts that do paddling. And it was all done voluntarily by those school districts. And it's really not even truly representative because it's only, say, if the same child's been paddled 50 times, they only reported that child as being paddled one time.
Right, right. So that's how it's staggering
Absolutely.
the numbers are.
And that goes also to the fact that if it were effective, they wouldn't have to paddle a child more than one time.
Yeah.
But these children are being paddled numerous times, and it's the same ones that are targeted, and that's very unfair. You know, you can't do that to an animal. And they're even talking about making animal abuse a felony, but look what's happening to our children at the hands of those entrusted with their care and education, paid our tax dollars. And as far as I'm concerned, they work for us.
Right.
Those are our children, and they need to be held to a higher standard. Right now, it's
Exactly.
anything goes. There's no
Yeah.
way to regulate how hard a person is hitting a child, what they're using, and I don't even know where to get a paddle.
Right. Or for what reason? You
Right.
know, or
Oh, for any
whatever's
reason.
going on with the child for
Yeah.
any reason. And even if they say, well, the kid's talking back, well, what's going on with the child at home? Perhaps that if you talked with him, you find out his
communication is the
frustrations.
key to everything between parents and school employees, and also students. I mean, that's what even all the medical organizations in our country, the most trusted ones, they're all against
Right.
paddling in schools and physical punishment of children in general because it has negative outcomes for children.
Exactly.
It causes them fear and anxiety and depression and resentment of authority and distrust, and it just a host of issues.
Yeah.
And that later become societal issues like domestic violence and incarceration and all, addiction, all sorts
Yeah.
of issues. But also the medical societies against it, they have research too that shows that it's an impairment to the learning environment because children have to feel safe
Yeah.
to be able to learn. And our schools are learning environments, they're not prisons. And prisoners are protected.
Yeah, they're protected
Yeah, they
from
can't
beating.
be beaten. You can't do that to a felon, a convicted felon.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really unfortunate too because when you think about these are the children's developmental years, it's like they're being hardwired in a certain way
That's right.
regarding this
They're being-
constant threat or
And
the abuse
intimidation
itself.
and the whole humiliation in front of their peers when they're in middle school, the young men, and it's usually the boys, it's very discriminatory. And you know, and they try to act tough, even though, because I've had a teenage boy tell me I got paddled and it hurt,
Yeah.
but I didn't cry because he's trying to be big, he's trying to be strong. I'm a man, I can take it. He's not going to
Right.
show that it hurt.
Right. As far as this happening in your school, how does it make you feel about these teachers or principal who does it? How do you personally look at these adults who can do this to children?
It makes me not think of them as real adults, and it's uncomfortable to be around them. It's like that awkward feeling all over again.
When they harm these children.
Yeah.
And parents have no legal recourse. It's all in the Human Rights and ACLU report of violent education. Anyone can research that
Right.
online and read it. It is shocking.
It is shocking.
And my hat is off to the
Alarming.
ACLU for putting forth that effort and getting that information together and presenting it.
Yeah.
And it's time for us to demand that our government act on it there's no excuse. There's not one argument in favor of paddling.
Yeah.
No good comes from it. It's not teaching values that American values or family values that
Right.
that we want our children to have. And it's not. There's no way it can be justified, and they just need to get on with it.
Oh, yeah.
Make it the law.
And
Law
let
of the
these
land.
children have some peaceful childhood.
That's right.
you know.
But they need to feel safe in school, and then they should be able to enjoy being a child.
Didn't know what a paddle was at home.
Oh, wow. So you've never been treated that way at home, only your teachers, our tax dollars at work, huh?
Yeah. But that's only in, well, as far as I knew for a long time in Tennessee. When I moved here, I found out what a paddle was.
And how old were you when you moved to Tennessee?
Like 9 or 10.
Okay, so that was the first time you were exposed to it. And what do you remember about that first moment of recognizing these people can beat me if they want? What was that like?
It's like I just didn't even want to be there at all. I was scared.
Yeah. You know, the wonderful thing is then the parents will say, well, you know, we used to look up this school for how to discipline our children. They're not doing that anymore. Maybe it isn't such a good idea.
You know, and
And
things
that's
are.
what we're looking forward to seeing.
We are evolving because nowadays, most parents, when you ask, or most parents would never volunteer the fact that they have spanked their child because they're ashamed.
Yeah.
Because it is very, very frowned upon. Because most people realize nothing good is coming from that.
Yeah.
That's not the right way to do it.
Exactly.
That's right. You need to be more thoughtful. Treat them like you would another adult.
Yeah,
Treat them with some
exactly.
respect, you know. Communicate with them.
Right.
Give them clear expectations and clear consequences. Physical violence and assault, pain as punishment in schools,
Yeah.
that's just not a good idea.
Not at all.
Usually it's mostly in the 6th grade building. They'll take out their paddles and they'll hold them up and talk to the whole class, like as just a whole. And they'll talk about how they can hit them and stuff.
When you were in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, there was no paddle. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the difference between what it felt like to attend a school where there were no paddles and then starting at a school where there are paddles. What was the difference that you recall?
Well, when I was at school with no paddles, it just felt like, I mean, I wasn't real close with anyone, like none of the students or the teachers, but it felt like we were a normal civilized group of people. And then when I just moved here and then I finally figured out what a paddle was. I mean, I didn't even know what it looked like, but I knew what it was. It was eerie and just awkward.
Well, is there ever a day that a child isn't beaten, or is it most likely that this happens every day?
It, more or less, I think it does happen every day. I don't really know because people stopped talking about it a lot.
It's just an embarrassing thing. And so what about, and walking in the halls, tell me, where does this take place?
I remember when I was in 6th grade, I'd be in the classroom, and then, like, if someone didn't do their homework, the teachers would, or the teacher that had them in their class at that time, they would take them right outside the door where the cameras could see, and they would spank them, and you could hear it and everything.
Where the cameras are, so they actually were videotaping it?
Yeah, I think so. They do it right in front of the cameras on purpose.
Why do you think they did that? Was it a
think
legal
it's-
thing, or just something they were showing off, or what?
I think it's to like prove that they're not like going beyond that or something.
But they still hit them hard. You said you could hear it.
The spanking of kids at school can be videotaped without anyone's knowledge, which is a lot easier nowadays with all the tiny cameras. And if that were circulated on the internet, it could be really humiliating for the student. Not to mention there's a black market for images of children being spanked. The FBI broke up a nationwide child spanking pornography ring in 2002, and at least 2 of its members worked in public schools. And finally, to bring the point others have made about the paddle qualifying as a weapon, when you hear about cases in the news of hazing where high school students or seniors actually paddle underclassmen, no one hesitates to see that as violent or assault or reckless endangerment. In fact, in 2 recent cases, the literal charge against the students was assault with a weapon.
What did that make you feel like? Did it ever interrupt you wanting to have lunch? I mean, did it ever interrupt you being able to think if you were taking a test? How does it impact you when you know it's happening at that moment in your school?
Yeah, I couldn't do my work when it was happening. That was the only thing that was on my mind, and it was really, really scary.
And the top 100 U.S. schools ranked by Newsweek, not a single one is a paddling school, so they're doing pretty well without it. There's a lot of prestigious groups supporting a ban on corporal punishment: the National Association of School Boards, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the National Association of School Nurses.
And it's usually with the paddles that have holes in them. I guess that's for like aerodynamics to hit harder.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so you have friends who literally have been beaten by their teachers. And have any of them ever discussed it with you at all? Like what it's like, or how much they hate it, or anything?
Just mildly, like small discussions, like they would tell me what happened or how they would do it. And then I remember my friend Nick telling me that one of the teachers in 6th grade told him to bend over and grab his ankles, and then she would grab his belt loop and smack him.
Wow. Hard to believe we're talking about America, huh?
Yeah.
It's unheard of for school personnel to receive any professional training in how to paddle students. They're not required beforehand to demonstrate their competence at doing it safely and judiciously. They don't get their paddles inspected normally or held to any standards of size, weight, composition, or craftsmanship, and least of all, measure the velocity of their swing. So we shouldn't really be surprised when something like this causes bruises like the ones shown in the pictures around here.
What would you tell them? What is the big deal about that? Maybe we could
I think
close out
that
with
they need to learn that we're not like barbarians and stuff. It's really embarrassing, and I think it exposes us in ways that we don't want to be exposed, and it just makes us feel uncomfortable.
I'd love to be a part of that happening for you and your generation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Julie, and thanks for coming all the way out here for the campaign.
Our pleasure. We wouldn't have missed it for anything.
Yeah, right on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I think I just want to express appreciation finally to Paula for organizing this, and to everyone else who took the time and traveled very far to be here today. And I think getting rid of school corporal punishment will go a long way to prevent school child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you.
On our Capitol steps here are the kids that are getting beaten in our schools, and the people behind the doors that you're looking at over here are the people that are allowing them to get beaten. My experience in the last few days here at the Capitol has been very disappointing. It's been very disappointing, and trying to get cooperation, support from anybody in this building has been nearly impossible. Thank goodness for Representative Donna Howard. She was brave enough, courageous enough to be the one person in this building that I found to let us, many representatives' offices that I went to, feel like it's okay for our kids to be beaten in our schools. Which is funny that their kids that attend Austin school districts don't get beaten. So why our capital city is not allowing it, but allowing all other cities around for it to happen in all other cities around is beyond me. And it's been very frustrating, and I'm so glad that these kids here are courageous enough to come to the Capitol and take a stand.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Angie. All right.